For most of us, we don't need much convincing to know that living the gospel is often a paradox in our lives. 1 and 1 does not necessarily make 2. When Jesus says you want to be the greatest, serve the least. Who is the greatest in the kingdom of God? Like little children. If you want to save your life, lose it. There's a lot of mixed images. And today, our scriptures are also filled with them. That image that's given to us in our first reading, these serpents that were actually causing death among the people, God commanded Moses to take them, put them on a staff. And those who looked had the faith to look upon the very thing that was destroying their life, but look on that staff with it on it, it brought healing. So confusing. And especially when we go back to the beginnings of the scriptures, who was it that tempted us? That first sin was a snake image. So the very image that caused death, when it's placed on that staff, its meaning has changed, it's taken the power out of it. And how was and is it? Throughout the world, in many ways, the image forever has been that image of a staff twirled around with a serpent. That was a place that you knew that's where the hospitals were, where healing could be possible. A safe place to take and bring healing. Today, our gospel is filled with that in our second reading. When Jesus came to us, as St. Paul says, he emptied himself as the divinity. He didn't cling to that, but he clung to our human nature. And he clung to our human nature and gave us that image of the cross, that he who also takes upon what causes death, sin, and he transfigures that, and he takes it and brings it to the pathway of salvation, to take the power out of sin and direct us. This Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross dates back to the 300s. It was the time when Christianity was not being able to be practiced. The Emperor Constantine, who was not Christian at this time, but his mother was. His mother was clinging to this faith. And Constantine was in the midst of a terrible, awesome battle. And very fearful, and his mother told him, focus on the cross of Christ. And mysteriously, Constantine, on emblems, saw on a banner the reflection of a cross. And he trusted in that, and they won the battle, and Christianity at that moment became able to be public and practiced. Clinging to the cross. How many times have we heard, many times our mothers, offer it up, kind of image to the cross? How many times do we find ourselves kind of clinging to a cross? The times I fly at times, you see people making the little sign of the cross, or kind of people who have crosses on them kind of take off, and landings are connected. When the Berlin Wall went up in Germany, and Eastern Berlin became very communistic, the churches were not able to practice their faith. And the communists put in a huge public building, a tower, that kind of represented their authority without God and so forth. Well, anyway, curious as it was, as this tall building went up and kind of like a steeple and so forth, every time the sun shined, the cross appeared on this tower. They repainted it. They put other kinds of metal up on it to shield it. The cross still came through. Curious. Sometimes we can't explain it. Sometimes, why do things happen to us in our lives? But when we focus on the cross, we know that we're not alone. That Christ bears that cross and hangs with us to take what we're having and transform it, and he says today, not to condemn us, but to bring salvation. Next to my bed, I have what is called a clinging cross. It's one that can easily just fit right in your fingers. And at nights, and I have more than a few, of not being able to sleep, the things that's going on in parish and lives of others people and so forth that kind of just don't know what to do. I just hold this. It keeps connected. In the sense, again, maybe words can't be used, but you know that the cross, we're not alone. And that's what we are challenged to do with our faith as we celebrate this feast, to cling to that cross in the unexplainable kinds of things, the things that don't make sense in our lives. We also remember how Christ, and that's one of the things that's such a stumbling block for many people in our world. How can you believe that this is God if he died like this? But he took on that pain of the cross and all that was there, and he lived through it and transfigured it. Let us today in our solidarity cling to the cross and remember those words, by the wood of the cross, he redeemed the world. May our lives give testimony to that belief.